What is up, horror fans? Welcome to another video on my channel. Today we are diving into one of the strangest horror movies that got released this year, which is Together. It stars Alison, Brie and Franco, and it takes the idea of being in a relationship to a whole nother gruesome level. Now, this movie is a mix of a couple of genres. It's part horror, part romance, part satire, and partly grotesque body horror. It's the kind of movie that doesn't really fit into one specific box, which at sometimes is its strength, but also its weakness. I'm gonna break down what worked for me in the movie and what didn't, and also why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. So if you're curious to find out more, stay tuned and we'll get straight into the review. This movie is about a couple named Millie and Tim, which are clearly on the edge of their relationship. The relationship is fraying, but neither of them is ready to walk away from it. So hoping to reconnect, they leave the big city and move to the countryside. But the countryside, it just feels off, just wrong. It's eerie, it's quiet, and the whole time they're there, they have the feeling something's pulling them somewhere, but they can't quite figure it out. So one day they go on a hike and they stumble across a tavern, which has this weird glowing liquid, which of course they have to drink because it's a horror movie. And from that moment, their bodies start to change. At first it's quite subtle, almost like they've rekonnected, rekindled their relationship. But soon it progresses into something more grotesque and their love quite literally starts reshaping them in the most horrifying way possible. So now I'm gonna go into the parts that I did like about the movie. So let's start off with what Together does really well. First off, the concept, in my opinion, is fantastic. Taking the idea of codependency, that fear of losing yourself in a relationship, and turning it into literal body horror, I think it's kind of genius. It works really well, especially works really well when it connects with human fears, and this movie completely nails that. Second of all, Alison Brie and Franco absolutely carry this film. It might be because they are also married in real life, so you really feel the chemistry between them. Their fights seem genuine, their intimacy feels natural, and that makes the horror so much more impactful. Third of all, the horror imagery. This isn't just your typical gore fest, your buckets of blood, you know what I'm talking about. It's more deeply unsettling. The animals coming back from the woods, twisted and fused and wrong. The subtle body transformations, and then later on some even more disturbing body fusion imagery. Also the sound design is also very killer. The squelching flash, the warped breathing, the voices blending together. It gets under your skin without even needing to be over the top. And finally, I've got to give credit to the tone. This movie is very uneasy, the intimacy, the dark humor, also the satire combined, it just works so well in my opinion. It does it very different than most horror films I've seen recently. Now it's time for the fun part, the things I did not like about the movie. Of course, this movie wasn't perfect, and that's where my score starts to dip. For me, the biggest issue was the first act. It just dragged for too long. The film wanted to build an atmosphere by showing the cracks in Millie and Tim's relationship, but I think it spends too long meandering before the horror actually kicks in. The second issue I had was the film's identity crisis. At some points it tried to be a tragic romance, at other points it tried to be satire, then it would swing into full-blown gory horror, which sounds amazing, but in practice it didn't really work. It made the movie very uneven, and I was not sure what kind of movie I was watching. In the third act, the story, it has a kind of a subplot with the occult and supernatural elements, so personally I think they overcomplicated things. The movie was most effective when it was just focused around Tim and Millie's relationship and their terrifying transformation. Adding extra layers felt a little unnecessary, and in my opinion it weakened the emotional core of the movie. It is ambitious, I'll give him that, but sometimes less is more, and Together, just on that aspect I think it just really misses. So here's where I land. Together is a bold, weird, and definitely one-of-a-kind movie. It's definitely not gonna please everyone, but it is a kind of movie that sticks with you long after the credits roll. The performances are excellent, the concept is brilliant, and the horror is genuinely unsettling. But the pacing issues and the third act is what's holding it back for me. That's why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. It is a fun, fascinating little movie, especially if you're more into experimental and emotional horror movies. But what did you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you're new to the channel, I post horror reviews, rankings, and deep dives every single week. So if you want more horror in your feed, be sure to click the subscribe button so you won't miss a video. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.